Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast, coming at you live on the YouTube channel, presented by the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network. Bo and Brant coming at you. Brant, it's time for week 3 of the NFL season. The first 2 weeks have been a treat so far. Coming off some pretty big injuries this week, we got some stud running backs, if you will, on the shelf. Jonathan Taylor's not playing. Eckler didn't play this last week, and then we saw Barkley get banged up, and then obviously that devastating injury to Nick Chubb on Monday night that we are all definitely thinking about. Nick Chubb, that's bigger than fantasy football when it comes to that injury. But nonetheless, this is a fantasy football show. Brant, what are your takeaways from those injuries?
I mean, you talk about it. You got at least JT missing the next 2 weeks. You have Eckler with no time frame. Chubb, unfortunately, is missing the entire rest of the season. Those are some big names, and you're going to need to find some guys to really help fill those voids on your fantasy teams. And like you said, prayers go up for Nick Chubb, hopefully for a speedy recovery, and he's back next year. That's definitely bigger than fantasy. Saquon Barkley getting banged up a little bit. It's definitely taken a hit on fantasy. I mean, we saw, and I'll give all the props in the world, we saw in the Vampire League that we're doing for the Fantasy Holics. We watched the Vampire full of waiver wire pickups outscore every team in our league this week. Yes, he beat me, but he outscored every team this week. That's how fantasy has gone in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's been one of those seasons, right, Brant? It's wishy-washy. Things aren't making sense right now. We hope they get back. Honestly, the running back position as a whole, outside of CMC, is just completely topsy-turvy this year. It's just things aren't what we necessarily thought they were. Some of the rookies are looking a little better early. Bijan's, I mean, amazing, but this is an NFL season where running back contracts weren't getting paid in the offseason. All of us were nervous about the running back position anyway. And then here we are going into week 3, and we're seeing all these top end running backs that were at that conference, at least on that conference call, starting to get banged up. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Maybe we need to hire a private investigator here and get this figured out. But nonetheless, Brant, let's get into this week 3 preview. Let's get the bibs on.
And let's eat.
All right, Brent, we talked a little bit before the intro there about some injuries that had happened this week, and I think we might as well just go ahead and jump straight into the waiver pool. Some guys that we're looking to go out and add this week, because I do believe one of yours coincides with one of these injuries. So if you want to go ahead and take us away first and talk about your first waiver claim.
Yeah, my first waiver claim is Jerome Ford there of the Cleveland Browns. He came out after the devastating injury to Nick Chubb, and he just balled out. He had over 100 rushing yards. He had that long, 69-yard rush. He looked explosive. This is a guy that is definitely probably still on your waivers, especially in most leagues. Go out and add this guy. He will instantly step into the RB1 role in my mind. Pierre Strong may spill a little bit of work, but I don't think he'll spill enough. Also, if you miss out on Jerome Ford, add Kareem Hunt. He did go and visit the Browns today. So there may be something a little sneakily in the water. So if you miss out on Ford, go add Kareem Hunt on a free agency. Don't waste your waiver claim and see if that hits.
Yeah, so Brant, that does bring me to my question. I was gonna pose this to you when you finished anyway. Are you how confident are you week 5 of the season? Obviously, week 3 and 4 are probably gonna be Jerome Ford. How confident that Jerome are you that Jerome Ford is the number one ball carrier in Cleveland come week 5? They're talking about Cam Akers, they're talking about Kareem Hunt. I've even heard Leonard Fournette's name mentioned when it comes to that backfield as a similar skill set guy to Nick Chubb. So if it's leaking this early that the Browns are wanting to add out of house, how confident do you think they are in Jerome Ford, and how confident are you in Jerome Ford long term?
Long term, I'm actually very confident he's been there. Kareem Hunt's the only one that really scares me away from it a little bit more because Hunt does already know the system. Hunt's been in the system for years. He just happened to, not make contract this year. Fournette, I think, would take a little bit of time. Cam Akers, I think Ford looks better than Akers did this year so far. I know Akers only played in week 1, but really Hunt's the only one that scares me. If they had anybody else, I think Jerome Ford is the back going forward, barring another injury to him. I think where the scary part is I don't think they trust Pierre Strong.
Okay. For me, I think Akers obviously would flourish there. I think that is a much better offensive line than the Los Angeles Rams. It just would depend on what Cleveland's willing to give up, to trade for a guy like Cam Akers, who is still young versus, if they hold out hope that Nick Chubb's back next year, which we all hope he is. Obviously, we hope it's not career ending. But just being honest with ourselves, there already is ligament damage to that knee. Hopefully you haven't seen the replay of that hit, but if you did, you understand the concern of that being correct. So I could see them, if they have hope that Chubb's back next year, maybe it's a rental. If they're nervous about Chubb long term, then I could see a guy like Cam Akers making a lot of sense just because he has been good, and I agree he didn't look great week 1 this season in comparison to Kyron Williams, but I do think again that offensive line is in Cleveland is good enough that would make a big difference for a guy like Cam Akers, probably the best offensive line he'd ever been behind. For me, the Jerome Ford he's obviously the number one waiver claim of the week just because there's that better than 50% chance this guy is a bell cow, slides into a bell cow role that Nick Chubb is leaving vacated, which we all know is very good for fantasy. So he should be the number one waiver claim in every league this year or this week that he's not owned in already. There's 2 different leagues, Brant, where I have the number one waiver claim, and I'm just going ahead and shooting my shot with Jerome Ford this week, hoping that it hits on him. And granted, one of those leagues, I'm dropping Nick Chubb to get him in a redraft. So, obviously that helps. But yeah, I just part of me is nervous that Jerome Ford's not the long-term answer. Kevin Stefanski, who is not, is he the Browns head coach? Who's the Browns head coach? Am I nuts? Is it Kevin Stefanski or is he the Vikings?
I don't know. It's a good question. Look it up real fast.
Anyway, that's blowing my wig back. But the Browns they have a defense that's set up to go out and create turnovers. They got guys like Preston Smith and Myles Garrett out there rushing the pass rusher. They got good corners. They're trying to create turnovers, get the ball back to their offense. And that offense is one of those offenses that puts long, slow, methodical drives on the field in order to allow the defense plenty of rest, if you will. And you're going to have a grinder on that offense or that offensive side of the ball, getting, 30, 25 carries a week. So what do you got, Brant?
Yes. Head coach. Yes.
Okay. I was confused for a second if he was there in Minnesota. I don't know why I was thinking Minnesota. I think he was the former OC there potentially. But nonetheless, the Chubb injury is scary. We'll see. I think it's Jerome Ford, at least for the next couple of weeks. He's going to be a great fill-in guy, Brant. My first waiver is a guy that if you've listened to this show at all this offseason, how high I am on him. But Jalen Hyatt, Brant, of the New York Giants, is a guy that I was kind of pounding the table for a late round dart throw in a lot of drafts with this guy in rookie drafts. I put my money where my mouth is. I own him in far too many leagues. But it was exciting. This week I got to see him catch his first NFL pass. He was on the field, and he caught 2 passes for 89 yards receiving. And the thing that's interesting is he was only on the field 20% of the snaps. So I it's not something I'm super duper excited about, Brant. What I am excited about is that Daniel Jones immediately put trust into him on the few snaps that he was on the play, and not just on like here little design screen plays to get him the ball behind the line of scrimmage to show what he could do with his speed. These were deep balls that he got underneath of and caught for Daniel Jones when that Giants offense was struggling and needed a spark. And on two of those receptions, the Giants ended up going on to score touchdowns. So I think he's definitely a guy that is a spark play, if you will, for the Giants. I expect the snap count to go up. I don't think he's going to get anywhere into the 50% snap share necessarily anytime super soon. But I definitely think this is a guy that is going to continue to build trust with Daniel Jones. They're going to continue to push him out there, especially as that offense looks stagnant as a spark play. I like what I'm seeing in Jalen Hyatt, and I truly, truly believe it's only a matter of time before he's the number one wide receiver in New York. Now, I didn't say number one pass catcher. I'm not sure he'd dethrone Saquon nor Darren Waller, but I do think at some point this season he's the number one wide receiver in town.
Okay, absolutely. I know that's a guy that you've been pounding the table for, and he definitely showed out this week at the time that the Giants needed. So I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna hit a guy that I was pounding the table for, and that's Tank Dell. I talked about him preseason, about how much I loved him. I loved his landing spot. In week one, he saw 48%. Yeah, 48% of snaps. He only saw 4 targets, only got 34 yards. Okay, he still had 7.53 points, or roughly 7 points in most leagues. In week 2, he jumped all the way up to 79% of the snap share, finished as a wide receiver 19, saw 10 targets. Let me toss my phone away. That's how excited I am about this guy.
Fair enough.
He's turning into the number 2 target getter for CJ Stroud there in Houston. We know Houston plays from behind a lot, and I did go back after you talked about Nico, and wow, Nico has put up some numbers this year. But this is the number 2 target in a pass-friendly offense, because they're playing from behind and playing catch-up in most games. Tank Dell's a guy that easily in the next week or two you could see being that number 1 waiver wire claim. I know, a lot of people want to see it in a few weeks. This is the guy that you got to go out, and I think Jalen Hyatt's the same way. You got to go out and you got to get him now. You might be able to get them both at free agency after waivers clear, but these are guys that you definitely need to go out and you need to add and really stash the bottom of your bench, because I think you're 2 weeks away from these guys being maybe flex 2 plays, maybe wide receiver 3 plays, but I think these guys are going to make an impact a lot sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Brent, and here's the thing that I think is super interesting too, is that the Texans are going to play from behind, I think, a lot of the season. And I just actually went and looked out of curiosity. Robert Woods, of all people, has had the last 2 games with 9 and 10 targets as well. So Robert Woods, all 3 of these wide receivers are kind of feasting. Snap shares not really indicative of anything. Tank Dell had 40% the first week, 79 this week. He actually did out snap Robert Woods in this week by 4%. So I'm not sure. I think there's all 3 of them are kind of just interchangeable at this piece, guys, that they're moving in and out of formations. I'm sure there was plenty of times I'd have to go back and look. I have not found myself desired to watch a Houston Texans game yet this year, Brent. I will at some point. But for me, I think that the thing is, I think these wide receivers are so interchangeable. They all have such a similar skill set that I think this is going to be a thing that we continue to see over the course of the season as they, again, try to find themselves in Houston, as they continue to play from behind in Houston. All 3 of these guys should get plenty of work. I honestly think all 3 of Robert Woods, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell have flex appeal each week. So just simply due to the fact that they're going to be playing from behind. Eventually, one of those guys is going to cement themselves as the one, and then I probably won't want to play them anymore because they'll be drawing the number 1 corner each week, and I don't know how much I feel or how much I like that. But right now, Brand, I think all 3 of those guys are great. So I'm all on board. I'm all on board the Houston Texans wideouts. I'm still not on CJ Stroud or Dalton Schultz or Damian Pierce. But baby steps.
Next year, we'll be talking about them to the moon.
No, I don't think so. So I'm going to stay in the same game that you just referenced. On the other side of the ball, there's a tight end that's calling Indianapolis home, Brant. And it's not the one I necessarily thought it would be at the beginning of this season. But Kylan Granson is currently the tight end 8 in PPR leagues right now. He's only caught 1 touchdown, so it's not like these are touchdown-laden numbers. It's just simply being consistent so far through 2 games, and I understand it is 2 games, but he actually saw more targets week 1 with Anthony Richardson than he did in week 2. He did catch a touchdown pass from your quarterback that you love, that I'm surprised you haven't started the show with.
George Mania, baby.
Mustache Mania. Garner Minshew, yes, sir. He did catch the first touchdown pass of the game from Garner. But again, this is a tight end that's seeing over 60% of the snaps in Indy. He's obviously has that early connection with Anthony Richardson and Brant. We talk about it all the time. Rookie quarterbacks like to target what?
The tight end and
the tight end and running back. But as long as the 60% snap share holds true on Kylan Granson, I'm going to be the one to say it. I think this guy could finish someplace in the wide or tight end 2 range. I'm thinking 13, 14, 15, someplace with some weeks tight end 1 upside. When he's playing teams like the Houston Texans, when they're playing teams that they're going to be competitive in games with, I like Kylan Granson to have a decent role here.
Absolutely. And we've seen it in the past that the Indy tight ends really have decent roles. So absolutely trying to get ahead of the game to get that tight end in Tennessee that's going to have that, or not Tennessee, in Indianapolis to have that role is very good to have. So we're talking about tight ends. How about we talk about the tight end number 2 in the NFL right now? And nope, it's not TJ Hawkinson. Nope, it's not Travis Kelce. No, it's not George Kittle. It's Hunter Henry, a guy that 3 years ago we were talking about being the next big tight end, and when he was with the Chargers, and then he left the Chargers. Well, now he's with the New England Patriots. This man has seen 6 targets in week 1. He finished as a tight end 1 with over 15 fantasy points. Yes, he had a touchdown in both weeks, so obviously he's targeted into the red zone. But this guy has finished both weeks with over 15 fantasy points. He's finished as a tight end 1 and a tight end 2. This guy is a guy that is starting to see so many targets and everything else. He's starting to become Daniel Jones's favorite target in the red zone. So I absolutely believe Mac Jones. Sorry, I absolutely believe that he should be added in all leagues. I think that he will finish inside the top 10 tight ends. They've had 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 total targets in the red zone, and 2 of them have come to him. He's caught 2 for 2 for 2 touchdowns in the red zone. So he's definitely one of the red zone guys there. I understand. I know I said 8, but 3 people have 2. And then Elliott has 1. I don't know if I even count that after watching that game the other day. Ramondre's a monster. I finally got to sit down and watch. But we're talking about Hunter Henry. We're talking about probably the best pass catcher on that team right now, outside of one wide receiver that I believe you will be bringing up here in just a moment. But I think Henry is going to be one of the favorite targets for Mac Jones there in New England. And like I said, he's tied in 2 right now. He will not be on waivers after this week.
My, how things come full circle, Brant. I specifically remember you and I sitting together at work when the news broke that Hunter Henry was choosing to sign with the New England Patriots. I believe the same day, if not the day after, Jonnu Smith also went and signed with the New England Patriots at the time. And I remember the devastation in your eyes as you watched your tight end that you had very, very high hopes for sign his life away to a Bill Belichick offense, where it's very hard to tie yourself to fantasy knowledge and fantasy value. And you've weathered the storm, and you get to plant your flag and say that, hey, Hunter Henry came full circle. Here it is. I'm excited about it. And I'm happy for you.
I dropped him.
You did. I was going to leave that out. You did hold on to Kenny Golladay a little longer than you held on to Hunter Henry, but I was going to leave that alone. That was going to be for just you and I. But yeah, Brant, I'm ready to get hurt again as well, because there is a pass catcher in New England that I have also been fallen victim to time and time again in his career, albeit not all in New England. But Devontae Parker, man, he came back this week. He didn't play week 1. He played week 2. He played 100% of the snaps. He had 8 targets, 6 receptions, 57 yards. He was number 2 in targets behind Kendrick Bourne, who was one of the most high waiver claimed guys last week after his 2 touchdown performance in week 1. also in Devontae Parker's absence. But Devontae Parker was number 2 in the team in targets, so he did beat out the aforementioned Hunter Henry, and he led the team in receiving yards, which granted 57 is not when you got guys like T. Higgins and Keenan Allen and these guys are going over 100 yards receiving. George Pickens, obviously 57 yards doesn't mean a whole lot, right? But what I am seeing, Brant, and I don't know how far you'd have to go back with a Tom Brady led team to see 40 some pass attempts in back-to-back games for Bill Belichick, but I promise you we didn't see it with Brian Hoyer under center. We didn't see it the year they had the Cam Newton experience under center. This is something new. I don't think we saw it much from Mac Jones last year throwing the ball this much either. So it's definitely the pass attempts there, the volumes are there, and we all know for fantasy, Brant, volume transitions into points. And right now, I think a lot of us would have said, hey, Juju's got to be the guy going into this year in New England. You know, you and I were obviously never high on him, Brant, but I think a lot of people, myself included, I would have lied if I would have said that I didn't think he probably led that team in receptions and targets. Not saying that I was high on him, but I would have lied if I would have said that I believed that. And I'm not so sure I do after 2 weeks. I think there's a good chance that somebody other than Juju Smith-Schuster leads this team in targets and receiving yards. And why not Devontae Parker? He's got all the talent. We've waited for it every single year, and it just doesn't ever happen. He has one huge game where everybody rushes out, picks him up off the waivers, and then he's quiet for a few games. He gets dropped back out amongst his peers, and then he explodes. All we need is a little consistency from you, Mr. Parker, and why not let that happen with Bill Belichick and Mac Jones? I think as long as he sees his snap count stay high, which I don't see any reason for it to dip back much below 80%. It's above 100 right now. If that stays high, Brant, and these Patriots keep passing the ball, I like Devontae Parker long term.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said he played, 100% of snaps. He's going to be on the field. Obviously, he's the wide receiver 1. They left him out week 1. So he goes from 0% to 100%. Obviously, he's the wide receiver 1 still in that offense. And owning a wide receiver 1 off of waivers is absolutely a great thing to have, even if he's just sitting there on the bottom of your bench to start out with. But absolutely, this is a guy that I would go out and own.
All right, Brent, let's go ahead and get into this Thursday night contest. Let's look ahead to the Thursday night. Actually, you know what? It feeds in. So let me slow myself down here. I'm getting a little overexcited about something I want to ask you. So we have the New York Football Giants traveling to San Francisco, playing the 49ers. Now, granted, it's not going to be too bad of a road trip because they were just in Arizona this week. So they just bebop over from Arizona to San Fran, I imagine. So they won't be too jet lagged or anything. But San Fran is favored by 10 points, Brant. And short week. I know Brian Daboll is coming out saying that Saquon Barkley is going to be a game time decision. I am not putting him in my lineups for a Thursday night contest unless I know ahead of time, hey, he's playing. He's not just going to be a decoy. Like, I'd have to have pretty good faith. Obviously, if Barkley's playing, you probably put him in your lineup. But, Brant, if Saquon Barkley does not play, who do you think is the guy in the backfield of the New York Giants?
Matt Breida. We've seen him spill the work last year, and I think he is. But guess what? I still am not putting him in my lineup against the San Francisco 49ers. If Barkley's out, there's not a running back on that side of the ball that's going in my lineup. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll put the running back and probably one of the wide receivers in my lineup on the other side of the ball. But, yeah, definitely. I think it's Breida. We saw him spill work last year for him. I think he's still the guy there.
Are you willing to go out and get Matt Breida, or is that one that you're like, yeah, it could be fun for a week or two, but I don't care enough about Matt Breida?
As bad as that offense has looked, I don't think I am. If I end up with an extra roster spot, I think I'll grab him off free agency if he's still there. Maybe he'll be my last waiver claim if it's rolling waivers. Maybe I'll put a claim in if it's a fab budget for $0. I'm not rushing. That offense has not looked anything impressive. So yeah, I'm not rushing out there to go get him.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So what's some things you're looking forward to in this Thursday night tilt, Brant, in San Francisco? What are you looking for in this game?
What's the over under? I know you said you wrote that down. What's the over under?
44.
Wow. Okay. So I'm not looking for a whole bunch of scoring from the New York Football Giants side of the ball. I would like to see that offense take a step forward. I'm sorry, it's going to be extremely hard going against San Francisco. San Francisco looks legit. I know it's a short week. This may be one of the worst Thursday night games we get this year because I really think that they're going to come in and they're going to steamroll. There's 2 games this week, and one of them is this one. I just think it's going to be a lopsided game. I don't even think it's going to be fun to watch. I'm kind of glad my children have a game that night, so I don't have to sit there and torture myself watching it this Thursday because I just don't. I hate watching the Niners beat the crap out of somebody, and I really think it's going to happen this week. They're at home. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it might be their home opener. I'm not sure. I think they started both games on the road this year. So they're going to come out and they're going to be ready to play.
It's one of those things, Brent, where you don't want to wish away the NFL season and you don't want it to be gone too quick. But this is almost one of those Thursdays where you're willing to go to your wife or significant other and say, "Hey, honey, I'm going to skip football to hang out with you this week." And she thinks you're really making a grand gesture, but really you just don't want to watch the murder that should be the San Francisco 49ers just molly-whopping the Giants. I will own up to it too, Brent. As soon as I looked ahead and saw this contest for Thursday night, I was kind of like, oh my goodness, like I don't even think I want to do special food or get overly excited about it. It may be on in the background while I'm doing something else, but I don't know. I'll probably get sucked into it just because I am so invested in Jalen Hyatt that I won't want to miss the 7 snaps a game where he's on the field. So I'll try to watch for those, I guess. But and maybe that's enough to keep me going, Brant. But there's not a whole lot I'm looking forward to in this one. I think, obviously the big question mark on the San Francisco side of the ball is how bad is Brandon Ayuk banged up? Is he play on a short week? Or is this a lot of Deebo Samuel and George Kittle? I'm not sure. I guess you could make the argument that there's going to be a good contest between tight ends potentially, maybe with Darren Waller and George Kittle. Outside of that, I feel like you're really twisting it to make anything out of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, there's another game this week too, and we're going to talk about it later on our start sits on Sunday morning. That's also involves a team in our division that is absolutely atrocious, and that's the Dallas and Arizona game. And I really feel like both these games are not going to be worth watching. Congratulations, if you will, on the San Francisco 49ers defense and fantasy. You're probably looking at least 15 points. That's probably the floor of their defense this week against this team. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be something you want to get glued to the TV. I'm sorry, Josh. I hope that you have something better to do, buddy, than watch this game on Thursday night because it's not going to be pretty.
Well, Brent, that does lead itself to our next segment. And if it's a contest that I'm really just not invested in, I don't want to watch, there's a way to get a little bit more intrigued by a game. And that's jumping over with our friends at Underdog and placing some same game picks on a few players that you really like. And again, we've talked about this in the past couple of days, Brent. Or at least the last 2 Sundays, they actually have a Thursday free square as well. And I believe it's Daniel Jones over half of a yard in this contest is what I saw. So you double check that while I'm talking about this here. But again, if you haven't already jumped on there and checked out Underdog, promo code Holics, they're going to double your initial deposit up to $100. So that gets you through the season as long as you're not a hopeless addict like Brant. If you're like me and you just play for fun occasionally here and there, that'll get you through the season, maybe a little bit of the NBA season if that's your jam. If it is, go check out Josh Rodriguez, our backstage manager, the producer, the man that pulls all the strings. He does have a fantasy basketball podcast, if you will. But anyway, you jump on there, you play same game picks on games like this Thursday night contest where you're like, man, I don't want to watch this. I don't know if I can make myself do it. Jump on there, pick a couple picks that you think are going to go higher, maybe 1 or 2 that you think are going to go lower, put a little scratch on it and have something to root for.
Absolutely. I do not have the free square, but that may be because, like you said, I may be a little bit of an addict and used all my free squares up. Luckily I had a decent week last week, so I'm able to stick around and play a little more.
Daniel Jones, if I can get it to settle in right there, it is half of a yard, a free square.
Oh, must be
Thursday
nice.
night contest.
Oh,
just needs 1 yard. So if you pair that with one of these other ones that Brant and I are getting ready to tell you about, then maybe you hit yourself something and things get a little bit better. So Brant, if you want to go ahead and take us into the plays. Actually, I guess I should hit the intro first, should I not?
Hit that intro for the picks of the day.
All right, Brant, go ahead and take us away with your favorite picks of the day.
So my favorite pick, I said they're going to be playing from behind the entire game, and that's Daniel Jones to go higher than 32.5 pass attempts. He may end up having 20 plus before halftime. I absolutely love him to have 32 over or higher than 32.5 pass attempts in that game. I think a lot of them will be dump offs, but I do believe that he will go higher than 32.5.
Here, look, here I am messing my camera up when I have it zoom in on my phone so I could show you my same game parlay because I'm not an addict. But anyway, I actually have Daniel Jones for 1-2, Brant, and I think this is one that if you want to take it, you got to go take it now because I think this line moves if Saquon Barkley is ruled out, but it's Daniel Jones higher than 37.5 rushing yards. And I do, Brant, think that if Saquon Barkley doesn't play, Daniel Jones is the leading rusher for the New York Football Giants. 37.5 is nothing for him. I think last year, if you go back and look, he hit it like 8% or 88 times out of his 16 games that he played. So 50% of the time. And I think he's been over it both the last 2 weeks. So this shouldn't be a problem for him, especially in the absence of Saquon Barkley. I think there'll be some designed runs for him.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. So my other one is, and I know he's going to throw the ball a lot. Like I said, I think it's going to be a lot of dump off passes, but I'm going to go with Darren Waller lower than 46.5 receiving yards. He's going against probably the best tight end defense in the NFL. I know we saw Pat Freiermuth get a touchdown in week 1 against them, but I am taking the lower than 46.5 receiving yards on Darren Waller.
Okay, fair enough. I am going to go back to the higher for a minute, and this is one, Brant, that I think you're going to not like me for this one because you're not very high on this guy this year. But that's Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to take his higher than 15.5 rush yards this Thursday night. Again, this is a guy that gets designed run plays. Last week, I think he had 5 designed runs. The week before that was only 2. But this guy, Deebo, is so electric that on 2 designed runs, he could get 50 yards, no problem. This is only 15.5. Again, last season, if you go back and look what he was doing, even after the CMC acquisition, he was still getting plenty of design carries out of the backfield there. So I definitely think Deebo goes over this, especially in a contest where San Francisco could get ahead early and be kind of trying some things out, Brant.
Okay, absolutely. Absolutely. I absolutely love his total yards to go higher than 73.5 if Brandon Ayuk is ruled out of that game. So definitely another one to keep an eye on. I believe that Deebo will be used in all sorts of ways this week. Like you said, if they get to a big lead, you could see them really trying new things to see what happens with that offense, to see what Brock Purdy is really capable of.
Absolutely. Brant, I think that pretty well wraps it up for us this week. Those of you listening at home, if you have a waiver claim that you're just absolutely obsessed with, put it in the chat. Maybe other people will be looking at it and be interested in that waiver claim. Comment on our video on the Facebook and let people know who you're picking up this week. Because maybe that player doesn't get picked up in somebody else's league and you help somebody else out. But Brant, I think that does it for us. Again, Sunday we'll be here live. 10 a.m. Eastern time to start your start sits with these 2 handsome faces. What better way to start off a Sunday, Brant?
Absolutely, absolutely. And as always, guys, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.